I would like to welcome you to this session in the continuing our discussion of the effective tools for requirements and concept development. In this session, we'll be discussing the Analytical Hierarchy Process tool that's included within the Triptych software package. The Triptych software includes a suite of tools that are effective for requirements and concept development. In the prior session, we discussed the Affinity Diagram tool and its application in collecting ideas and information from your stakeholders, and then organizing those ideas so we could see effectively the details of the problem that we're trying to go address. In this session, we'll be discussing the analytical hierarchy process, which can be used to establish the importance or the prioritization of any information, and in particular information that we can flow down from our affinity diagram from the prior portions of the process. In the Triptych tool set, we include tools for supporting the voice of the customer, innovation, developing alternatives, and then also selecting the best approach among the various alternatives that have been identified which will satisfy the voice of the customer. We began our process with understanding the problem, organizing ideas, and identifying the various needs and wants, and we demonstrated the use of the Affinity Diagram tool to support these techniques. In this session, we'll be discussing the prioritization of information that we've collected in the Affinity Diagram, which may be needs or wants that will be used to support the requirements development process. And specifically, we'll be using the Analytical Hierarchy Process, or the AHP Importance tool that's included within the Triptych software. Once we complete the prioritization of information, then we can address those as possibly being what the stakeholders need to satisfy or to achieve a solution to the problem, identify the hows that will support that accomplishment, and establish the relationships, possibly using QFT methods. Then we can consider alternatives to propose a solution that will satisfy the stakeholders' needs and wants. Among the alternatives that are created, we can determine the criteria they must satisfy, and then select the preferred alternative, and then start our risk assessment using failure modes and effects analysis techniques. So AHP is a technique that we can use to take a set of identified items that need to be rank ordered or prioritized and perform a simple pairwise comparison of each of the items and basically determine a relative importance between these pairs of items. In determining the relative importance, what we will do is assign a numerical value where we'll be comparing one item to another item, and maybe a large value would indicate that a particular item A is much more important than item B. A lesser scale value would just say that maybe item A is just more important than item B. A 1 would indicate equally important, and then using the reciprocal of the above numbers, we can make an assessment where item A is less important than item B, or item A is much less important than item B. There are various numerical scales that can be used. The original scale that was developed and employed by Thomas Sadie and the development of the AHP technique is on a 9-to-1 numerical scale with the corresponding reciprocals. And in the SDI tool, AHP Importance tool, you can use the Sadie scale, or you can use the SDI scale, which is an abbreviated 10-5-1 scale. Once you've assigned the numerical scores related to the degree of importance of these paired items, then calculations can be performed in order to determine the overall rank order or prioritization of multiple items that you've included in this assessment. Shown in the figure at the bottom of this slide is a screenshot of the AHP tool that's within the Triptych software, where item A will be in the left of the matrix here, item B will be the items identified in the upper portion of the matrix. So the end result is once you've employed the AHP tool, you have captured information, you've documented, you communicated what is your prioritization of these items that will be important to the development of a particular product or the process or problem that you're addressing in your development activities. So let's go develop a AHP matrix. Let's go through the process of using the Triptych tool to perform the pairwise comparison and come up with our prioritized list of items. Okay, what I'm showing on this slide is an affinity diagram that was created leveraging from the information or discussion in the prior tutorial. And basically we're going to take a simple problem here of how to create an effective affinity diagram. And having collected a set of ideas from various stakeholders that could contribute to creating an effective affinity diagram, we have affinitized this information into 4 groups: the actual meeting facilitation, the information documentation, the use of affinity diagram results, and then the attendees and representation in the meeting. Now here we've identified information, and this could be beneficial in knowing that these things are important to helping us determine a good approach for creating an effective affinity diagram process or tool, whichever the case may be. Now what we may want to do is rank order information that is in this affinity diagram to determine what is the most important, and then what is the least important, and then the ones that fall in between. So to support this, we're going to go open the Triptych software. Go to Start, All Programs. We'll go to SDI Tools and open Triptych. And having opened Triptych, we'll see that the toolbars will show up in your on your desktop in the earlier versions of Excel, and in the later version of Excel, the toolbars will be located in the add-ins window that's in this version of the tool. Now then, there are 2 ways that we can create affinity diagrams. One would be to go start a new Triptych worksheet. We will select the affinity diagram as a potential voice of the customer technique. As an option, you can go ahead and select the number of items that you want to include in this affinity diagram. I'll just say 5 in this case, and then click OK. All right. Now we have a blank affinity diagram template, and we can enter then the items that we want to prioritize. So let's say cost is an item we're looking at, maybe schedule, maybe performance, maybe flexibility, okay, and then maybe producibility. So these could be items that we want to prioritize, and you can see that as I entered these items into the left of the matrix, that the same items were entered above the matrix as the column headings. Now what we can do is go to the intersection of a row and column cell, and then we can select a numerical value that would indicate the relative comparison between these 2 items, schedule and cost. So if schedule is much more important than cost, we'd select a 10. If schedule is more important than cost, a 5. A 1 would indicate that cost and schedule are equal to each other. A 1/5 would indicate that schedule is less important than cost, and a 1/10 would indicate that schedule is much less important than cost. So let's say that schedule in this case is just more important to cost, and we could select the 5. And then you can see that you can enter values in this lower triangular matrix, and in the upper triangular matrix is where the reciprocal of the corresponding cells will be entered for the other cells. And then the end result is that the calculation will be performed to produce a row total, a relative importance, and then a scaled importance, which you can view as your prioritization of the items in the list. So we could continue this process looking at each one of our pairwise comparisons. Maybe performance is equal to cost. Maybe flexibility is much more important than cost. And we can continue on to populate this matrix and then get the corresponding rank ordering. Now I'd like to show you another technique for entering information into an affinity, into a AHP importance tool. Let me go to the affinity diagram that I've captured from a prior session, And let's go now to the Triptych toolbar, and let's copy this affinity diagram. We're going to copy the information into an AHP template. So when I select this, you can see I get a representation of what's in our affinity diagram, and where I have the groups listed, the information that's inside this group. So all the information is kind of in a indented outline format. Now I can go and select items that I would like to transfer into an AHP matrix. So in this case, I'm going to select the groups. I want to go prioritize the groups to find out which of these key groups is more important and which ones are less important than the others. And we can move this into an AHP. The items will be added in as items, and here the groups will be added in as items. We can click the export, and we see that we have a new AHP template created as another worksheet in our workbook. We have the items that were the groups entered in here as in both the row headings and the column headings. And now we can start our prioritization process. So let's say that in terms of creating an effective affinity diagram, we have information documentation as compared to meeting facilitation. Let's say that meeting facilitation is much more important than information documentation. Use of affinity diagram results as compared to meeting facilitation. Let's say that use of the information is just more important. Make this a 5. Attendees and representation as compared to meeting facilitation. Let's say that these are equal to each other. We need the right people there, and we need to then facilitate the meeting properly also. Next, we can compare use of the affinity diagram results to information documentation. And I'm going to say that use of the information is more important than the way it's documented possibly. Attendees and representation as compared to information documentation. Let's say that we need to have the right people there, so let's say that this is more important. And then attendee representation as compared to use of the affinity diagram results. And let's say that attendee representation is less important than the use of these results. So the result is, now of having entered this information, we've created automatically the row totals, the relative importance, and then scaled this on a scale that you can select the range of. In this case, we did it on a 5:1 scale. If you want to do a 10:1 scale, just simply change the numbers, and now we have the prioritization on a 10:1 scale. So we see that use of the affinity diagram results is the most important, followed by information documentation, followed by attendees and representation, and then last is meeting facilitation. So now, having collected the results, we can go use this in our other activities, and this would tell us the prioritization and how much attention to pay to certain items in terms of achieving the result we're looking for related to creating possibly an effective affinity diagram. Now, other capabilities within the tool is that you can sort the information. We can go to the sort icon in the toolbar, and you can select then up to a 3-level sort, and sort on row total, relative importance, description, scaled importance. And let me just sort on relative importance, and I'm going to do this in a descending fashion. Okay, so most important at the top, least important at the bottom, and then I'll sort. Okay, and we have the affinity diagram sorted for us. Very easy to communicate and see, and we have a history established here for what drove our decisions in the prioritization of these items that we extracted either from our affinity diagram or that possibly we entered in just as on the fly for basic information. Now, at any time within the affinity diagram, you can delete rows or you can add rows. So there are tools in the Triptych toolbar where we can insert items within our affinity diagram. We can delete items. We can format text, predict the type, the style, the size, underline, strike through, change colors of cells or fonts as you desire. We can run a spell check. Another feature within the AHP tool is that of checking the sheet for consistency. So let me go back to the other AHP that we just completed, and if I select to check the sheet for consistency in these pairwise decisions, you see that what we will do is compute the maximum eigenvalue, a consistency index, and then a random consistency index can also be computed. So I'll click to calculate. We'll get these results. For this particular matrix, I see that the consistency ratio indicates that this matrix is not very consistent. In fact, I may have contradicted myself in deciding which items are more important, less important, and I have contradictory pairwise comparisons. Then in the tool, you can click the More button, and it will go off and execute then some comparisons and see what would be potential changes that could improve the consistency of this matrix. So possibly at meeting facilitation as compared to attendees and representation, maybe this should be lower. I have it equal. Maybe meeting facilitation is really less important than attendees and representation. Meeting facilitation as compared to use of the results may also need to be lowered in order to get more consistency. So using this, you can take actions as necessary to maybe rethink about the process and see if there are any changes you want to make sure you have a consistent decision making applied across doing these various pairwise comparisons within this matrix. Okay. So that is an editing step that you could pursue later on and do this in steps. So returning to our discussion, we can see that we've looked at a couple of examples of creating an AHP matrix. You can use different scoring methods that are selectable within the options for the AHP tool. And the end result is that now we have collected this in a Excel spreadsheet. Demonstrated that the interface is very simple. Once you have this, you can share it with anyone else that has Excel. Add and delete rows or columns as you need to. You can format information. You can actually go in and add, one of the features is to add comments and hyperlinks to cells. So if you needed supporting information or to include rationale as to why you made a particular input a particular score for pairwise comparison, you could put notes or hyperlink to other information. All the numerical cells are calculated automatically for you. You can set up the number formatting. I showed you the built-in check feature that allows you to do a consistency check to be sure that you've properly created the information needed to perform this prioritization. And now then, once we have this, we'll show you in future sessions of how we can flow the information from the AHP into other tools to continue your requirements definition and concept development process. So in summary, what we've used the Triptych tool for up to this point is to collect information, prioritize this information to understand what is the most important and the least important using the analytical hierarchy process. And then in future discussions, we'll look at translating needs and requirements. We'll look at analyzing conflicting requirements to develop potential solutions. We'll evaluate design alternatives, and then look at risk management and risk assessment techniques using failure modes and effects analysis. So hopefully you've seen that the technique is very simple. It kind of takes really techniques that have been around for a number of years and puts them in a format to enhance your productivity of using these methods, communicating information across the team, and hopefully focusing on the right information that will drive to success for your development activities. So I want to thank you for attending this session on the analytical hierarchy process. If you want to download the SDI tools, you can do so at SDI Tools. Download the SDI tools at stat-design.com. You'll have a free 7-day trial upon installation. If you have any questions on the tools, the techniques, the applications, please contact me either at my email address or by telephone, and I'll be glad to discuss your ideas, discuss your applications with you. So thank you very much, and hope you will take some time to sit in on the other tutorial sessions also. Goodbye.